exchange before we break for dinner. Calling to the floor, F331. Thank you. Jeff?
Again, Jeff Shapiro speaking on behalf of NPGA, who sponsored the test that we ran, and I have a modification that's before you for 331.
That modification is in order.
So when we originally started on this...
If I might, there we go. Sorry, Jeff. It hadn't been up on the screen yet for folks.
When we originally started working on this, it was our intent to reference the provisions in NFPA 58. But during the course of the testing, what we came to prove pretty conclusively is that putting cylinders into an exchange cabinet is actually far superior from an impact protection standpoint than any of the bollards that we tested. And we tested bollards that were cast in monolithic concrete with the required base connected to the slab. We tested them in the soil with loose packed soil as a basis of comparison. We tested them with and without backstops. And then we did the same scenarios with aluminum cylinder exchange cabinets and steel cabinets with wire mesh. And then we actually tested cylinders with the pendulum test that's used for protected tanks, where we swung a cylinder with a knob on the end of it, trying to rupture LP gas tanks. And it was lots of fun, I'll point out. I had a good time. But anyway, what we demonstrated is that the tanks themselves, with a direct impact from a steel impactor, are pretty good up to 10 miles an hour equivalent. And none of the bollards survived a 10-mile-an-hour impact. Somewhere between 7 and 10, pretty much whatever you do to it, it's going to fail. The vehicle will either snap it off or go through it. When we tested the cabinets, which were very lightweight wire mesh on one case with the steel, very thin aluminum on the other, very typical of what you're going to find. They were supplied by the manufacturers that make these that are all over the country. The impact was mostly absorbed by the cabinet structure, and the cylinders did jostle around, but we had pressurized cylinders with no failures, no leaks, no nothing inside, even without the bollards, even without a backstop. We tried them bolted down, we tried them unbolted, and basically I was thoroughly convinced that these cabinets in any configuration that's good enough to hold the cylinders based on the weight of the gas and the cylinders is going to be good enough to withstand the vehicle impact, and I proved that to myself by actually impacting the cylinders directly on the pendulum test. So I'm very confident that having these cylinder exchange cabinets with no additional vehicle impact protection actually exceeds the performance level that the code specifies for bollards, and that's what I'm proposing in this modification.
Thank you. Further
question? Jeff, does NFPA 58 have guidelines or standards on those cabinets?
They do. They are required to be ventilated metal. I used the text right out of 58, so lockable ventilated cabinets of metal construction is right out of 58.
Thank you.
Well, Jeff, but the question is, from metal construction, any gauges, strength, thicknesses, or just metal construction?
Just metal construction. We tested aluminum and steel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further testimony and support. Mike?
Mike O'Brien, International Association of Fire Chiefs, Fire and Life Safety Section, and Fire Code Action Committee. We were privy to some of this preliminary information. Jeff came and did a proposal, and originally we had some consternation on this proposal pointing to 58 and not staying within. Jeff used a lot of big terms. Let me put it in firefighter simplicity and right before dinner. I was thoroughly impressed with how these containers held up versus impact protection that I thought could stop a standard weight vehicle. And this change with the modification that you see in front of you makes it real easy, gives us, these cylinder exchange programs are everywhere. And the big challenge a fire code official has is how do I protect those? And this gives us the parameters without anything too real special. So,
thank you. Further testimony and support. Opposition? Seeing none. Mr. Chairman, this one's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Committee, we need a motion on F331.
Motion with an intent to modify?
Do I have a second?
Second.
State your modification.
Modification as presented by Mr. Shapiro.
Okay. Do I have a second on the modification?
Second.
Oh, sorry, we did. Discussion on the modification? Seeing none, the question before the committee is on the modification. Those in favor of the modification, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those opposed? The modification passes 14-0. We're on as modified. Discussion? The question before you in F331 is as modified. Those in favor of as modified, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those opposed? Thank you. F331 has been approved as modified, 14-0.
F331 is recommended for approval as modified, 14-0. Is there an assembly action? Seeing none, we will take a 1-hour break for dinner, returning at 7:25. Thank you very much.